Massive stone ruins hold secrets that could rewrite human history. This journey uncovers a hidden chronology revealed by forgotten sites across the globe. We will explore ancient structures, decode mysterious symbols, and piece together a story that defies conventional timelines. What if the rise of civilization happened not once, but in cycles lost to time? By the end, you will see the past not as a straight line, but as a complex puzzle with pieces we are only now discovering. How much of our history remains buried, waiting to be found? Mainstream history books often draw a straight and steady line from simple hunter-gatherers to the grand empires of the ancient world. This tidy progression is a comforting story, but it is one that begins to crack under the weight of silent stones. Scattered across the globe are structures that simply do not fit this linear model. They are the forgotten ruins, sites of such staggering complexity and age that they challenge the very foundations of our accepted timeline. What makes a ruin forgotten is not always its obscurity, but more often the profound mystery it represents. These are places where the engineering precision, the astronomical alignments, and the mathematical knowledge etched into the rock appear far too advanced for the era to which they are officially assigned. Traditional archaeology, working with established models, sometimes struggles to explain them, leading to these sites being labeled as anomalies or quietly set aside. Yet these structures are not mere curiosities. They are crucial keys, the massive interlocking stones of a fortress whose builders left no written record, or a temple complex aligned with stars in a way that should have been impossible without advanced tools. These are not just relics. They are evidence. They suggest that the story of human achievement is not a single, slow-burning candle but a series of fires, some of which flared into brilliance long before our recorded history claims was possible. The very stones themselves whisper a different tale, one of a hidden chronology we are just learning to hear. Rising from a Turkish hilltop, the stones of Göbekli Tepe speak a language we are only beginning to understand. These are not simple huts or primitive shelters. They are immense T-shaped pillars, each weighing many tons, arranged into great stone circles. Their surfaces are a gallery of ancient art, etched with foxes, cranes, and scorpions with a sophistication that defies their incredible age. This site was already ancient when the first stones of the Egyptian pyramids were laid. It was a ruin, deliberately and carefully buried, thousands of years before the rise of Rome. The sheer scale of labor involved is staggering. To carve, transport, and erect these pillars required not just brute strength, but a highly organized society with a shared vision. This is the profound mystery of Göbekli Tepe. According to the traditional story of human progress, this should not exist here. Monumental architecture was supposed to be the product of settled farming societies. The idea was that only after humans learned to cultivate crops and store surplus food did they have the leisure time and social structure to build temples and pursue complex art. But Göbekli Tepe turns that sequence completely on its head. It was built by hunter-gatherers, people who supposedly lived hand to mouth. So what compelled them to come together for such a monumental task? The answer might lie in the symbolism carved into every pillar. This was not a village. It was a ceremonial center, a place of gathering and perhaps shared belief. This suggests a radical idea. What if the spark of civilization was not the practical need for agriculture, but the human desire for meaning, for community, and for connection to something larger than oneself? The technological innovation required to build this place, the engineering and the organization, may have been driven not by economics but by spirit. Göbekli Tepe does not just add a few years to our timeline, it forces us to ask a far deeper question. What truly ignites a civilization? Is it the mastery of our environment, or is it the power of a shared idea? The silent stones of Göbekli Tepe whisper of a beginning far older than we knew. Yet halfway across the world, another set of stones presents a different kind of mystery, one not of origins but of impossible continuity. The pyramids of Giza are so iconic, so deeply etched into our collective imagination, that we risk forgetting how truly strange they are. We are told they were built as royal tombs for pharaohs of Egypt's old kingdom. But look closer beyond the familiar silhouettes, and the official story begins to fray at the edges. The three great pyramids are arranged on the ground in a perfect mirror image of the three stars of Orion's belt, a celestial map of astonishing accuracy. The Great Pyramid itself encodes the mathematical constant pi in the ratio of its perimeter to its height, a level of sophistication not formally recognized for thousands of years. Then there is the Great Sphinx, the massive lion with a human head that guards the plateau. Its body shows deep, vertical fissures, patterns of erosion that leading geologists argue are the unmistakable signature of heavy rainfall, of water weathering. The last time the Giza Plateau experienced rainfall of that intensity was over 7,000 years ago, a period long before the rise of dynastic Egypt. How do we reconcile these facts with the established timeline? The evidence suggests the Giza Plateau may be a palimpsest, a parchment that has been written upon, erased, and rewritten by different hands across vast stretches of time. The pharaohs of the Old Kingdom may have found these monumental structures already ancient and simply adopted them, putting their own stamp on a legacy they inherited from a forgotten world. This is not to take away from the incredible achievements of ancient Egypt, but to suggest they were the curators of a knowledge system, not necessarily its sole inventors. The plateau challenges the neat, linear progression of dynastic history. It hints at a lost epoch of achievement, a golden age so remote that its fingerprints are only visible in the enduring stone of the world's most famous ruins. From the sun-baked sands of Egypt, we plunge into the depths of the ocean, where a different kind of mystery rests in the silent dark. Off the western coast of India, beneath the waves of the Arabian Sea, lies the legendary city of Dwarka. For centuries, its story was preserved not in stone but in verse, detailed in ancient Sanskrit texts like the Mahabharata. These epics describe a magnificent, fortified city of great wealth, with grand avenues and majestic gates, a kingdom built by the divine figure Lord Krishna. The texts recount a tragic end, the city consumed by the sea after Krishna's departure from the world. For generations, this was considered a beautiful allegory, a myth with no basis in physical reality. Then the divers went down. What they found on the seafloor was not a legend but a landscape. Marine archaeologists have mapped massive stone structures, including large block walls and geometric foundations, spread across a significant area. They have recovered ancient artifacts, pottery, and even anchors, with some materials carbon dated to over 9,000 years old. This is not a scattered shipwreck. This is the skeleton of a city, and its age is what sends shockwaves through the historical timeline. According to mainstream models, this period was one of simple, nomadic societies. The existence of a planned, sophisticated urban center like Dwarka at that time is not just unexpected, it is revolutionary. It provides a stunning physical anchor for a story once dismissed as pure fiction. The sunken stones of Dwarka do more than prove a city existed. They validate an entire cultural memory. They suggest that the great epics are not merely imaginative stories, but could be echoes of a real, advanced civilization that flourished when much of the world was still in shadow. This forces a profound re-evaluation, not just of India's history, but of a potential global prehistoric culture whose achievements were so vast, their memory outlived their ruins, preserved in myth until the sea itself chose to give up its secrets. Puma Punku is a place that feels less like an ancient ruin and more like an industrial yard from another world. Nestled in the high Bolivian plains, its very name means the door of the Puma. But the reality on the ground is far stranger than the name implies. The site is a sprawling field of shattered megaliths, but to call them simple stones is a profound understatement. These are geometric puzzles carved from andesite and granite, some of the hardest stones on the planet. We see massive H-shaped blocks that interlock with impossible complexity, and stone slabs with surfaces so flawlessly flat they could be mistaken for modern precision flooring. The edges of these cuts are razor-sharp, meeting at perfect 90-degree angles, and some blocks feature boreholes that are drilled with a consistency that seems to demand machine tools. The sheer weight of these components is staggering, with many individual pieces weighing well over 100 tons. How does a culture, even a sophisticated one like the Tiwanaku, who are traditionally credited with the site, achieve this without hardened metal tools, without the wheel, and at an altitude that leaves modern visitors breathless? The official timeline, placing its construction around 1,000 years ago, begins to strain under the weight of these questions. The logistical feat of quarrying these monoliths, transporting them across difficult terrain, and then executing such minute precision work suggests a level of technological prowess that seems out of place, out of time. Puma Punku does not feel built by hand, it feels manufactured. This leads to an unsettling but captivating possibility. What if the knowledge required to work stone in this way represents a lost science, a technical understanding that was later forgotten or fragmented? The site stands as a silent, stark challenge, pushing us to reconsider the entire toolkit of the ancient world and wonder what other chapters of human ingenuity are still missing from our history books. Beneath the sun-drenched island of Malta lies a world turned inside out. The Hal-Saflieni Hypogeum is a labyrinth of rooms and corridors carved with immense patience directly into the living limestone. This is not a simple cave or a basic burial chamber. It is a vast, three-level subterranean temple that plunges deep into the earth, a complex so intricate it feels like an inverted cathedral. Its construction began over 5,000 years ago, a project that spanned many generations. The sheer volume of stone removed by its creators, using only simple tools of stone and bone, is a staggering feat of perseverance. But the true mystery of the Hypogeum is not just in its scale, but in its sound. Within this silent stone world, certain chambers are not silent at all. They possess a remarkable acoustic property. If a person speaks in a specific tone, their voice resonates through the entire hall, creating a powerful, vibrating hum that seems to fill the very air. Researchers have found that these chambers are tuned to specific frequencies, vibrations that can actually influence human brainwave patterns, encouraging states of deep relaxation or heightened focus. This was not an accidental feature. The architecture itself is a musical instrument, carefully engineered to use sound as a tool. This suggests the Hypogeum was far more than a resting place for the departed. It was likely a sanctuary for ritual, a place where sound and architecture were fused to guide individuals into altered states of consciousness, perhaps for spiritual vision or healing. This mastery of psychoacoustics, the science of how sound affects the mind, is a concept modern science is only now beginning to fully grasp. Yet here, in a structure older than the pyramids, we find evidence of its deliberate application. The mystery deepens with the physical remains discovered within. Among the many individuals laid to rest here, some skulls were found to possess an unusual, elongated shape, unlike typical human anatomy. This has sparked lasting debates about the identity of these people. Were they a distinct group, or does this morphology point to a cultural practice, a deliberate shaping from infancy for spiritual or social reasons? While we may never know the full story, it underscores that the builders of the Hypogeum were not just engineers of stone, but pioneers of the mind. They understood that the boundaries of human perception could be shaped by their environment, that architecture could be a spiritual technology. The Hypogeum stands as a profound reminder that ancient knowledge was not always about moving mountains, but sometimes about harnessing the invisible forces that move us. The mastery of sound and stone at the Hypogeum speaks to a deep, sophisticated understanding of the world. Yet this knowledge and the cultures that held it seem to vanish from the record, leaving behind only their most enduring monuments. The question that haunts every one of these sites is not just who built them, but what happened to that world. To understand why these advanced ruins became forgotten, we must look beyond archaeology to the Earth itself. Evidence locked in ice cores, sediment layers, and the collective myths of humanity points to a series of global cataclysms around 12,000 years ago. This period, known as the Younger Dryas, was an era of profound and violent change. The world experienced a dramatic and rapid return to Ice Age conditions, a big freeze that climatologists believe was triggered by a catastrophic event, possibly a comet impact. This would have shattered ice sheets and generated mega floods of unimaginable scale, rising sea levels that could have swallowed entire coastlines in a single, terrible chapter. Imagine the oral histories of such an event, passed down for generations, eventually becoming the flood myths that are found in cultures from the Andes to the Middle East. A disaster of this magnitude would have been a great reset button for humanity. Thriving coastal civilizations, centers of trade and knowledge, would have been erased from the map in an instant, their cities submerged, just as the legends of Dwarka describe. The survivors of such an event would have been scattered, their numbers devastated, their complex social structures shattered. The delicate knowledge of engineering, astronomy, and architecture, once held by a specialized class, would have fragmented into scattered, disconnected pieces. This cataclysmic reset theory offers a compelling explanation for the great discontinuity we see in the archaeological record. It explains why we find evidence of a high culture, a spark of advanced understanding, and then a long silence, a dark age lasting for thousands of years before the embers of civilization slowly glow again in places like Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. The ruins we have explored were not simply abandoned. They are the durable bones of a world that was lost, the only structures strong enough to survive a global calamity. They are the legacy of a humanity forced to start over, with only the faintest echoes of a grander past whispering from the stones left behind. These recurring symbols feel like a whisper passed between continents and across millennia. Carved into the stones of Göbekli Tepe, etched onto the massive statues of Easter Island, and painted deep within forgotten caves, we see the same visual patterns emerging again and again. Spirals that coil with patient energy, zigzag lines that crackle like lightning, and concentric circles that ripple outward like a stone dropped in a pond. These are not random scratches. They appear with such consistency that some researchers ask a bold question. Could this be the remnant of a universal language, a symbolic code shared by ancient cultures long before the invention of writing? This idea suggests that our distant ancestors were not just surviving, but were actively mapping the fundamental principles of the world around them. They were observing the deep patterns of nature and finding a way to represent them in a shared visual vocabulary. Take the spiral. It is the shape of a galaxy turning in the void, the form of a hurricane seen from above, the growth pattern of a nautilus shell, and even the double helix structure of life itself. To ancient seers, this recurring form may have represented a cosmic principle, a fundamental law of growth, expansion, and energetic motion. By carving it into stone, they were perhaps encoding this understanding, creating a permanent record of their insight into the fabric of reality. When we compare these symbols across continents, the parallels become difficult to dismiss as mere coincidence. A spiral in Malta might carry a similar meaning to a spiral in Mesoamerica, not because of direct contact, but because both cultures observed the same universe and arrived at the same symbolic representation for its core processes. This points toward two fascinating possibilities. The first is the idea of a deep, interconnected root culture, a single source of knowledge that fragmented after a great cataclysm, with its symbols carried by survivors to all corners of the globe. The second possibility is perhaps even more profound. It suggests a shared human intuition, a hardwired capacity to perceive the underlying geometry of nature and express it through art. This symbolic system would have been a powerful tool for transmitting complex ideas about astronomy, Earth energies, and even states of consciousness without a single written word. It was a language of meaning, not of grammar. Decoding this lost language is one of the great challenges of our time. It requires us to look past our modern assumptions and listen with older eyes. Each spiral, each zigzag, is a piece of a global puzzle, a message from a forgotten age that understood the universe as a living, patterned whole. What other secrets are hidden in this silent, stone-born code, waiting for us to remember how to read? The silent language of symbols finds its echo in the silent movements of the heavens. Across the globe, the most enduring monuments of the ancient world share a common feature, a deliberate orientation toward the stars. England's Stonehenge captures the rising sun on the solstice with breathtaking accuracy. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to true north with a precision that rivals modern engineering. And the vast geoglyphs of the Nazca Desert in Peru may form a colossal map of celestial constellations drawn upon the Earth. This was far more than simple stargazing. It represents a highly precise and deeply integrated science, a testament to a shared obsession with the cycles of the cosmos. For these builders, the sky was not a distant mystery but a working clock and a sacred calendar. The alignment served immediate, practical needs, dictating the optimal times for planting and harvest, governing the rhythms of entire societies. They also framed moments of profound spiritual significance, timing ceremonies to harness the perceived power of a solstice sunrise or a lunar eclipse. Yet the purpose may reach even deeper, into realms we are only beginning to comprehend. Some researchers suggest these sites were designed to anchor or amplify specific energies, acting as spiritual batteries tuned to cosmic frequencies. Others see in these alignments a grander ambition, a way to record the slow, majestic wobble of the Earth's axis, known as the precession of the equinoxes. This is a cycle that takes 26,000 years to complete. The very fact that these cultures seem to have been aware of this immense timescale is perhaps the most staggering clue of all. It implies their sense of history, their chronology, was not measured in mere generations or even centuries, but in vast cosmic ages. They built their legacy in stone, aligning it with a celestial clock whose hands move so slowly that an entire civilization can rise and fall between the ticks. What profound event, what lost golden age, were they trying to commemorate or perhaps even warn us about, encoding a message in a language of astronomy meant to last for millennia? The granite boxes in the Serapeum of Saqqara present a puzzle that quietly defies simple explanation. These are not rough-hewn tombs, but dozens of massive, precision-cut sarcophagi, each carved from a single block of incredibly hard stone like rose granite or basalt. Their surfaces are polished to a glass-like smoothness, with corners so sharp and flat they seem machined. The official explanation suggests they were shaped using stone hammers and copper tools, materials that are significantly softer than the granite itself. Trying to carve granite with copper is like trying to shape steel with a piece of chalk. It simply does not work from a materials science perspective. This glaring discrepancy forces us to consider a radical idea that the builders possessed a lost material science. Some researchers point to examples of vitrified stone at ancient sites where the rock surface appears to have been melted and fused as if by intense heat. How could such an effect be achieved without technology we would recognize today? Another clue lies in the diorite pounding stones found in Egypt. Diorite is harder than granite, and while it could theoretically be used for patient pecking, it does not adequately explain the flawless, mirror-finish surfaces on these colossal boxes. This has led to speculative but fascinating theories. Could the ancients have discovered a chemical agent, a plant-based slurry perhaps, that temporarily softened stone to a clay-like consistency, allowing them to mold it with ease before it hardened again? Or perhaps they harnessed the power of sound, using specific resonant frequencies to reduce the weight of massive blocks or even levitate them into place, a concept mentioned in various cultural legends. While mainstream archaeology continues to seek more conventional answers, the evidence in the stone itself is stubborn. The precision, the scale, and the material choices all point toward a sophisticated understanding of physics and chemistry that we do not typically attribute to the ancient world. This suggests a forgotten technological epoch, a golden age where the boundaries of engineering were pushed to limits we are only now beginning to glimpse. The true mystery is not just the how, but the why, and what else that advanced knowledge might have accomplished before it vanished from memory. Plato's account of a great civilization vanishing beneath the waves has echoed for more than 2,000 years. In his dialogues, he describes a powerful and sophisticated island kingdom called Atlantis, a society of immense wealth and advanced knowledge that fell out of favor with the gods and was swallowed by the sea in one terrible day and night. For centuries, scholars have debated whether this story was pure philosophical fiction, a cautionary tale about hubris, or a distorted memory of a real historical catastrophe. The reason the legend endures while so many other myths have faded is its uncanny resonance with the physical evidence emerging from the deep. We now know that our planet's coastlines looked vastly different thousands of years ago, before the great melt at the end of the last ice age raised sea levels by hundreds of feet. Vast, fertile lands that were once home to human communities now lie submerged. One such place is Doggerland, a sprawling plain that connected Great Britain to mainland Europe. For millennia, it was a rich habitat for human settlement until rising waters slowly and then suddenly reclaimed it. Could the story of Atlantis be a cultural memory of such a lost homeland, a once great society whose world literally sank away? Another compelling candidate lies in the Mediterranean. The Minoan civilization on the island of Thera, modern Santorini, was a brilliant and advanced culture known for its sprawling palace complexes and vibrant art. Around the year 1600 BC, a volcanic eruption of almost unimaginable force literally blew the island apart. The event would have generated colossal tsunamis that ravaged the coast of Crete, contributing to the swift decline of the Minoan world. For any survivors, it truly would have seemed as if their entire civilization had been punished by the gods and destroyed in a single day. The search for Atlantis, then, is about more than just finding a sunken city. It is a search for a lost chapter in the human story, a potential golden age that reached a peak of cultural and technological achievement before meeting a sudden, catastrophic end. This narrative of rise, zenith, and dramatic fall is a pattern we see reflected in the mysterious ruins scattered across the globe. They stand as silent monuments to the possibility that our history is not one of steady progress, but a story of cycles, of brilliant dawns followed by long forgotten nights. The ocean floor holds more than just sunken cities. In the silent wreckage of an ancient Roman ship, divers recovered a lump of corroded bronze that would become one of history's most profound puzzles. This object, known as the Antikythera mechanism, was no simple statue or piece of jewelry. When painstakingly examined, it revealed itself to be a complex clockwork device, a labyrinth of interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden case. It has been called the world's first analog computer, and for good reason. By turning a hand crank on the side, the user could set a date and the machine would calculate the positions of the sun, the moon, and known planets. It predicted solar and lunar eclipses with remarkable accuracy, and it even tracked the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. This was not a tool for simple timekeeping. It was a portable, mechanical representation of the cosmos itself. Dated to around 200 years before the Common Era, its existence is a historical shockwave. The level of miniaturization and precision engineering, with its delicate gear trains and differential gears, is a sophistication that simply vanishes from the archaeological record for more than a millennium. We find nothing else like it until the astronomical clocks of medieval Europe. So how did such advanced technology appear, only to be completely lost? The device is a physical smoking gun, undeniable proof that the ancient Greeks, or perhaps an even earlier culture whose knowledge they inherited, understood mechanical principles and celestial mathematics at a level that fundamentally rewrites our perception of their capabilities. It forces a humbling question. If this one device survived only by the chance of a shipwreck, preserved in cold, deep water, how many other marvels of ancient engineering were made of wood and cloth, of materials that turned to dust long ago, leaving no trace for us to find? The Antikythera mechanism is a solitary survivor, a single page from a vast library of lost knowledge, reminding us that our ancestors' intellectual journey was far more advanced and far more tragic in its interruptions than we ever dared to believe. These geometric mountains of stone rise from nearly every continent on Earth. We find the majestic, stepped pyramids of the Maya piercing the jungles of Central America, their flat tops designed as stages for ritual and connection with the celestial realm. On the other side of the world, in the plains of China, massive earthen mounds, pyramid structures in all but name, lie shrouded in secrecy and legend. Even a mountain in Indonesia, Gunung Padang, is now understood by some researchers to be a complex, man-made pyramid, its deepest layers suggesting a staggering antiquity. Why would cultures separated by vast oceans with no apparent contact repeatedly choose this same specific shape? The most straightforward answer lies in simple physics. A pyramid is fundamentally the most stable structure possible for building to a great height. Its wide base and narrowing peak allow it to withstand earthquakes, storms, and the relentless passage of time. But the explanation surely runs deeper than mere engineering. In many ancient traditions, the pyramid was a symbolic recreation of the primordial mound, the first land to emerge from the waters of chaos at the dawn of creation. By building their own mound, a culture was reenacting the genesis of the world, turning their temple into an axis connecting the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. This spiritual function may have been coupled with a practical one. Some researchers propose that the pyramid form, especially when built with specific materials and aligned to the Earth's magnetic grid, could function as a powerful energy conduit. The Great Pyramid, for instance, is located at the exact center of the Earth's landmass, a placement that seems too precise to be coincidence. Could the builders have understood principles of geomancy, the art of harnessing the planet's subtle energies? The structures themselves offer clues. Whether in Egypt or the Americas, pyramids are overwhelmingly aligned with the cardinal directions with unnerving accuracy, and their proportions often encode sacred geometric ratios like the golden mean. This points toward one of two profound possibilities. The first is that a single, incredibly ancient source culture, perhaps one that thrived before the great cataclysms, developed this sacred architecture and its underlying principles, with survivors carrying this blueprint across the globe. The second possibility taps into the depths of the human mind itself. Perhaps the pyramid is a powerful archetype, a primordial form buried deep in our collective unconscious that different cultures independently retrieved and manifested in stone. It is the shape of aspiration, of reaching from the earthly toward the divine, a silent testament to a shared human dream carved into the very landscape of our planet. The stories our ancestors told around flickering fires were far more than simple entertainment. Long before the invention of writing, oral traditions and myth served as the living libraries of humanity, preserving vital knowledge across countless generations. These narratives, often relegated to the category of folklore, are now being re-examined as potential encrypted records of real events. Consider the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of Australia, which describe in precise detail the coastline as it existed more than 10,000 years ago, including features that are now submerged beneath the sea. On another continent, numerous Native American tribes share a common legend of a time when a star with a long tail brought great fire from the sky, followed by a devastating flood. This story aligns remarkably with the scientific Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which posits a comet fragment striking the Earth and triggering a global climatic catastrophe. The parallels are too striking to ignore when we begin to treat these myths not as fiction but as long-term historical accounts. A new methodology emerges. We can cross-reference the events described in these ancient stories with hard data from geology and archaeology. A flood myth from one culture can be compared to sediment layers showing evidence of a massive deluge. A story about a mountain that burned with fire can be checked against volcanic ash records. This approach allows us to extract a hidden chronology from the collective memory of our species. The great events that shaped our world, the cataclysms and the migrations, were not forgotten. They were woven into the very fabric of our cultural identity, preserved in the rhythm of poetry and the melody of song, waiting for a time when we would learn to listen not just to the words but to the truth they have carried for millennia. But every discovery, from the celestial computer to the sunken city, leads us back to a fundamental question. Why does this hidden chronology remain a story told on the fringes, rather than a chapter in every history book? The answer lies in the very nature of modern archaeology, a science built on a foundation of meticulous caution. The guiding principle for generations has been uniformitarianism, the idea that the processes we observe in the world today, from the slow erosion of a riverbank to the gradual development of a technology, operated at the same pace in the deep past. This principle anchors our understanding, providing a stable baseline against which to measure evidence. Within this framework, proposing a lost civilization with advanced technology is akin to suggesting that the river once flowed uphill. It challenges the core assumptions of the entire discipline. This academic caution is further reinforced by the practical realities of research. University careers, publication in prestigious journals, and critical funding all depend on working within established paradigms. Proposing a radical revision of human history is not just an intellectual risk, it is a professional one. A scholar who stakes their reputation on a controversial site or theory can face immense skepticism, a skepticism hardened by the long shadow of pseudoscience. For over a century, wild claims and fantastical narratives, often divorced from evidence, have muddied the waters. This has made the academic community understandably wary, creating a culture where extraordinary claims are held to an extraordinarily high standard of proof. And for prehistoric eras, that kind of proof is often maddeningly scarce. Stone endures, but wood, cloth, and the finer tools of a sophisticated society turn to dust. So we are left with a difficult tension. On one side is the necessary, rigorous skepticism that protects the integrity of the field. On the other is a growing collection of enigmatic stones that simply do not fit the established timeline. This is the central drama unfolding not in ancient ruins, but in modern lecture halls and at dig sites today. It is a slow, careful conversation between what we think we know and what the silent evidence suggests we have forgotten. These academic silos, once so firmly built, are now beginning to crumble. The secrets locked within forgotten ruins are not yielding to a single key, but to a master ring forged from many disciplines. When an astronomer looks at a temple's alignment, they see a celestial calendar. When a geologist examines the same stones, they read the history of quarrying and climate in the rock itself. An acoustic engineer hears the intentional resonance of a chamber, while a geneticist traces the lineage of the people who built it through ancient DNA. This is the power of interdisciplinary research, a collaborative effort that is finally building bridges over the deep chasms between fields. A perfect example is the investigation into the Younger Dryas period. What began as a geological mystery with unusual sediment layers and nanodiamonds found across continents required the input of astrophysicists to model a potential comet impact and archaeologists to interpret the subsequent dramatic shift in human settlement patterns. No single researcher could have pieced this puzzle together alone. The story of our past is not written in one language, but in many, from the code of genetics to the poetry of myth. By learning to translate them all simultaneously, we are creating a new, holistic model of prehistory, one that is robust, evidence-based, and far more resilient to our own biases. This synthetic approach acts as a crucial filter for the wilder theories that often surround ancient mysteries. A claim about advanced technology can be tested by materials scientists. A proposed transoceanic migration route can be checked against genetic and linguistic data. What was once pure speculation can now be either solidly grounded or gently set aside, allowing us to focus on the plausible and the profound. The result is an understanding of our past that is truly greater than the sum of its parts, a unified narrative slowly emerging from the fragmented whispers of stone, bone, and starlight. The ocean floor near Yonaguni Island holds a formation that seems to defy simple explanation. Lying just below the waves, a colossal mass of stone emerges from the seabed, its surface is unnaturally flat and its edges meeting at sharp, precise angles. What some see is a monumental structure, a complex of terraces, steps, and what looks like a wide, carved platform. The sheer scale is breathtaking. A single rock formation the size of a building, standing in water that was dry land thousands of years ago. The immediate, compelling question is whether this is a masterpiece of nature or a relic of human hands. Geologists point to the region's unique sandstone, which can fracture along straight planes due to tectonic activity, creating the appearance of carved blocks through natural weathering and strong currents. They argue that nature is a powerful sculptor, capable of producing breathtaking coincidences. Yet other researchers counter that the probability of such random processes producing a structure with such symmetrical, repetitive features is incredibly low. They highlight the two tall pillars that seem placed to support a ceiling, the perfectly carved spiral staircase, and the twin monoliths that look like they were positioned with clear intention. This is the core of the debate, a puzzle that lies at the blurry intersection of geology and archaeology. If the Yonaguni monument is indeed a human creation, its implications are staggering. It would suggest that a culture capable of large-scale stonework existed in this region when the site was above water, a time that could stretch back over 10,000 years. This would completely rewrite the early history of Japan, pushing back the timeline for complex construction by millennia and adding a profound new chapter to the map of prehistoric cultures. The difficulty in reaching a definitive conclusion highlights the immense challenges of underwater archaeology. Unlike a dig on land, where layers of soil can be carefully brushed away, this site is constantly battered by strong currents, limiting dive times and obscuring details with sediment and marine growth. The evidence is literally shrouded in water, making it difficult to find the small, telltale artifacts, like a simple tool or a shard of pottery, that would prove human activity beyond a doubt. The Yonaguni monument stands as a powerful symbol of this entire search for a hidden chronology. It reminds us that the line between a natural wonder and an artificial structure is not always bright and clear, especially after thousands of years of submersion have softened all edges. It challenges us to look deeper, to question our assumptions, and to wonder how many other monumental secrets are still waiting beneath the waves, their true nature obscured by the very sea that preserves them. Beyond the stone and alignment lies a deeper layer of the mystery, a persistent whisper of a lost wisdom tradition. This was not merely practical knowledge of engineering, but an esoteric understanding said to encompass the fundamental laws of nature, the nature of consciousness itself, and the subtle energies that flow through the earth and the cosmos. Proponents of this view argue that this sophisticated science was deliberately encoded into the very geometry of sacred sites, creating a silent library built to last through the ages. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is endlessly analyzed for its mathematical secrets. Some point out that its perimeter relates to the circumference of the Earth, and that its dimensions, when manipulated, yield numbers strikingly close to the speed of light. Others find the golden ratio, a mathematical proportion found throughout nature, seemingly embedded in its design. To mainstream critics, these correlations are often dismissed as coincidence or numerology, the human tendency to find meaningful patterns in random data. Yet the sheer volume of these mathematical and geometric correspondences across multiple ancient sites is difficult to entirely ignore. What if this reflects not random chance, but a different way of seeing the world? This perspective suggests the builders of these monuments possessed a mode of consciousness more integrated and holistic than our own. They may not have separated science from spirituality or physics from philosophy. In their view, the universe was a single, interconnected living system, and their architecture was a means of resonating with its core principles. They built not just to impress, but to harmonize, to create structures that acted as tuning forks for cosmic vibrations. This shifts the entire purpose of the hidden chronology. It is no longer just a question of when they built, but why, and with what profound understanding. The search becomes not only for lost cities, but for a lost state of mind, a way of knowing that saw the universe as a unified whole and left its signature in stone for a future age to finally decipher. For centuries, the dense jungles of Cambodia seemed to guard their secrets with an impenetrable green wall. Explorers and archaeologists could only guess at what lay beneath the thick canopy, their progress measured in arduous, slow-moving expeditions. Then came the laser eyes in the sky. LIDAR technology, which stands for light detection and ranging, has fundamentally altered that relationship. Mounted on aircraft, these systems fire hundreds of thousands of laser pulses every second toward the ground. Those that slip through tiny gaps in the foliage bounce back, creating a massively detailed three-dimensional map of the true ground surface. It is a form of digital deforestation, peeling back the layers of time and vegetation with breathtaking speed. What these maps have revealed is nothing short of revolutionary. Where we once saw only isolated temples like the famous Angkor Wat, we now see a sprawling, low-density urban metropolis. The LIDAR maps show a vast network of canals, roads, earthen mounds, and village ponds, stretching for dozens of miles. This was not just a ceremonial center, but a functioning, complex city of a scale and population density that no one had previously imagined for its time. It forces a complete reassessment of the Khmer Empire's sophistication and its eventual challenges with water management and sustainability. This is happening across the globe. In the jungles of Central America, LIDAR has exposed entire Maya cities previously unknown, complete with pyramids, fortifications, and sophisticated agricultural systems. Each new flyover is like turning on a light in a dark room, instantly revealing the full scope of a civilization's footprint. Meanwhile, on the ground, another technology peers into the Earth itself. Ground-penetrating radar sends electromagnetic pulses into the soil, painting a picture of what lies beneath by reading the reflected signals. It allows archaeologists to see buried walls, tombs, and even ancient pathways without ever lifting a shovel. This non-invasive tool is like giving the past an X-ray, preserving the integrity of a site while revealing its deepest secrets. This flood of new data is the engine of a paradigm shift. We are no longer just connecting a few dots on a map. We are watching the entire connect the dots picture emerge all at once, and the image is far more complex, interconnected, and vast than our textbooks ever described. This is not a slow accumulation of facts. It is a great leap in understanding, powered by a technological lens that lets us finally see the world our ancestors truly built. Accepting a hidden chronology would fundamentally reshape our identity. It would be a revolution of thought, much like when we realized our planet was not the center of the universe. This new narrative would transform our understanding of human potential, suggesting that innovation and complex society are not rare flukes in a slow march forward, but are deep-seated traits that have flourished repeatedly. The story of humanity would no longer be a single, upward-sloping line, but a series of great waves, each cresting with brilliance before crashing into a dark age, only for the next wave to slowly gather again. This cyclical view introduces a profound and necessary humility. It asks us to look at our own global civilization, with its intricate networks and technological wonders, and see it not as a final destination, but as another chapter in this long, recurring story. Our permanence is no longer a given. This perspective also demands a long-overdue re-evaluation of indigenous and oral traditions. These are not just myths, but could be the surviving memories of those who lived through the ends of earlier worlds. Their knowledge of the land, the stars, and the cycles of nature may be the fragmented legacy of those lost epochs, a wisdom we have often dismissed. This paradigm shift could ignite a new golden age of exploration, not outward to new planets, but inward and backward into the deep past and into forgotten corners of our own world. It rekindles a sense of wonder, not just about who we are, but about who we have been, time and again. Ultimately, a rewritten history is less about the past and more about our future. It offers a sobering lesson on the fragility of complex societies and the critical importance of building with resilience and a deeper respect for the natural systems that sustain us. The silent stones are not just relics, they are mentors, teaching us that survival may depend on remembering the cycles we have already forgotten. This urgent quest for knowledge brings with it a profound responsibility. As we stand on the brink of potentially rewriting human history, we must also confront a difficult ethical question: who truly holds the key to these ancient places? The drive to uncover hidden truths can sometimes clash with the rights and beliefs of the communities who have lived in the shadow of these ruins for generations. For many indigenous peoples, these are not merely archaeological sites. They are sacred landscapes, the resting places of ancestors, and living parts of their cultural and spiritual identity. An excavation, no matter how scientifically intended, can feel like a violation. This creates a delicate balance between the global pursuit of knowledge and the local respect for tradition. The very act of digging, while revealing one layer of history, can irreversibly destroy another. The context in which an artifact is found, its position next to a tool or beneath a specific stone, often tells a more detailed story than the object itself. Once that context is lost to careless digging or looting, the story is silenced forever. This problem is often worsened by a practice sometimes called parachute archaeology. This occurs when outside research teams descend on a location, extract valuable artifacts and data, and then depart, taking both the physical objects and the intellectual credit with them. The local community, the very guardians of the land, is left with little to no benefit, their history packaged and interpreted far away. A more responsible and increasingly essential path forward is one of true collaboration. This means involving local communities and indigenous scholars from the very beginning, not as laborers but as partners. It requires sharing findings openly, training local archaeologists, and ensuring that discovered artifacts remain accessible to the people whose heritage they represent. The ultimate goal must shift from merely making a spectacular discovery to ensuring the long-term preservation of these non-renewable resources. Every site is a unique chapter in the human story, and once it is disturbed, that chapter can never be read in the same way again. How we choose to proceed now, with humility and partnership or with haste and ownership, will determine what fragments of our shared past are left for future generations to understand. Synthesizing these global clues suggests a narrative far grander than any single discovery. Picture a world during the last ice age where sea levels were dramatically lower. On those vast, fertile continental shelves now submerged, a sophisticated network of cultures may have thrived. This was not a single empire, but an interconnected web of societies sharing a core body of knowledge. They understood the movements of the stars with precision, encoded sacred geometry into their architecture, and viewed the Earth itself as a living, energetic being. This potential mother culture, which we might call Yoru Chronos for simplicity, established the original template. The first megalithic sites were not random monuments. They were precisely placed nodes in a global network, functioning as both astronomical observatories and perhaps as centers for harnessing subtle planetary energies. These structures were their library and their power grid, built to last through the ages. Then came the rupture, a series of catastrophic events, possibly fragments of a comet striking the Earth, triggered the Great Melt and the sudden climate shift of the Younger Dryas. The world these people knew ended in fire, ice, and flood. Their coastal heartlands vanished beneath the rising seas in a geological instant, erasing the central hub of their civilization from the map. But from this collapse came a diaspora, scattered groups of survivors carrying the shattered fragments of their knowledge, traveled inland and across oceans. They found refuge in various parts of the world, becoming the seeds of the cultures we recognize today. One group, settling in the Nile Valley, used their inherited knowledge of astronomy and engineering to build the pyramids, curating a legacy they had not solely invented. Another, reaching the high plains of Bolivia, applied their remembered stoneworking skills to create the impossible precision of Puma Punku. A third, arriving in Mesopotamia, laid the foundations for writing and city planning. This model elegantly explains the great paradox of ancient history, the simultaneous appearance of advanced yet seemingly isolated civilizations. They were not independently inventing similar ideas from scratch. They were all rebuilding from a shared but broken blueprint. The parallels in their myths, their symbols, and their sacred science are not coincidences. They are the family resemblances of cultures born from the same forgotten parent. The search for our true past is accelerating into a future where technology and open-minded curiosity converge. This is no longer the slow, patient brushing away of dust. It is a global, high-resolution scan of the planet itself, and it is focused on three key frontiers. The first lies beneath the waves on the vast continental shelves that were dry land during the last ice age. These submerged plains, larger than many modern countries, were the most likely places for early civilizations to flourish. Advanced sonar and autonomous underwater drones are now mapping these lost landscapes in stunning detail, searching not just for solitary structures, but for the sunken roadways and foundations of entire settlements. The next frontier is digital. Artificial intelligence is being trained to sift through the world's collective mythology, analyzing thousands of stories for common patterns and events. An eye can cross-reference a flood myth from ancient Sumer with a similar story from the Americas, searching for the core historical truth that might lie beneath the cultural variations. It can also analyze ancient symbols, comparing the precise angles of a spiral carved in Malta to one found in Peru, looking for a mathematical language we can no longer consciously read. Meanwhile, our ability to date the past is becoming ever more precise. Projects like the cosmic ray scan of the Great Pyramid use subatomic particles from space to peer deep into its core, creating a three-dimensional map that may finally confirm the existence of long-rumored hidden chambers. This non-invasive technique could be applied to other megalithic sites, revealing their internal secrets without ever touching a stone. The next generation of explorers is already embracing this synthesis. They are as comfortable with a genetic database as with a trowel, and they are far less constrained by the rigid paradigms of the past. Their greatest discoveries may not come from the traditional cradles of civilization, but from the planet's final frontiers. The impenetrable jungles of the Amazon, now being revealed by LIDAR to hold the ruins of vast, complex societies. The icy depths of Antarctica, which may hold clues to a world that was once green. The anoxic, preserved depths of the Black Sea, a potential time capsule from a time of great flooding. The puzzle of our origins is immense, but the pieces are now falling into place with growing speed. Each new scan, each new analysis, brings us one step closer to a true understanding of our collective journey, a story written not in ink but in stone and waiting for us to finally remember how to read. Our journey through these silent stones has taken us from the sun-scorched plains of Turkey to the ocean floor off the coast of India. We have stood beneath the immense T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe and felt the strange resonance within Malta's subterranean temples. We have decoded the celestial alignments of the pyramids and marveled at the impossible precision of a 2,000-year-old computer salvaged from the sea. Each site, a whisper from the deep past, has contributed a vital piece to a puzzle that refuses to fit the simple, linear story we have long been told. These forgotten ruins do not merely add a few extra years to our timeline. They shatter it entirely, suggesting a hidden chronology defined not by steady progress, but by great cycles of brilliance and forgetting. They tell a story of advanced cultures that rose to incredible heights, only to be swept away by global cataclysms, their knowledge fragmented and their memory preserved only in the most enduring stone and the most persistent myths. The key takeaway from this global detective story is humbling and exhilarating. Human history is far richer, more complex, and infinitely more mysterious than any single textbook could ever contain. It is a story with missing chapters, written in a language of astronomy and geometry that we are only now relearning. These ruins are not just dead stones or empty monuments. They are messages, they are the legacy of our ancestors, urging us to look deeper, to question the established narrative, and to wonder what we have lost. They ask us to consider that the spark of civilization may have ignited not once, but many times in a rhythm we are only beginning to perceive. Let this exploration be an open invitation to you. The next time you see an image of an ancient pyramid or a mysterious stone circle, look at it with new eyes. See it not as a relic of a primitive past, but as a potential clue in the greatest detective story of all, the story of us. What other secrets are waiting to be unearthed in a distant jungle, or perhaps hidden in plain sight? The search for our true past is far from over. It continues with every new technological breakthrough, with every curious mind that dares to ask what if, and with every perspective, including your own, that joins in piecing together our collective inheritance.